Hey everyone, welcome back to another video here at Chess Crafters. Since you guys liked that last puzzle video so much, I thought I'd drop another one. Now, I stumbled upon this puzzle online, and let me tell you, it's not your typical brain teaser. It took me an embarrassing amount of time to actually figure this one out, and let's hope you can do it quicker than me. Take a look at the board here. It's White's turn to move and hopefully win. So why don't you challenge yourself by pausing the video here and trying to figure out this one on your own. Write your answer down in the comments, and then you can see if you got it correct in the end. For the rest of us who want to see it right away, let's jump right in. Alright, so the first thing I notice here when I take a look at this board is that White is already down one pawn. Now, even if I've got this powerful little discovery check right here, in reality it's not all that much of a threat for Black. The best I can do with that discovery is to pick up the bishop, but that doesn't even guarantee a win for either side, and we want to win. So how do we actually win the rook over here? Well, if our c5 pawn wasn't right here, it'd be pretty simple. Just slide that rook down to a5 for a discovery check. The king can't go to b7 because of that bishop, and we pick up the rook right after that. Unfortunately, our pawn is blocking the way. So the question we really need to be asking ourselves is, how do we make our own pawn disappear? First of all, let's move our rook to d6 and place Black in check. Now this leaves the Black king with only 3 places to move: c7, b5, or right here to c5. Now let me tell you right away, moving to c7 would actually be a major blunder, because now as White we can fork the king and the rook with a check, and then promotion for us would come the next move. Now if Black decided to take our pawn, we sort of accomplished that little mission of making that pawn disappear, and now we come back with a check and pick off this rook the next move. According to the engine, that's actually the smartest move for Black to play, but that's according to a machine. The human brain doesn't really work like that, and I don't think most people would see giving up their rook as the smartest move in that situation. Now, instead of capturing that pawn, they hang on to the idea that the pawn is more of a liability for us than it is an advantage, and they decide not to take it. They play king to b5 instead, and now it's White's turn to make a hard decision. Now, the most natural move, if you ask me, is to take that pawn with the rook, but that's going to end up in a draw after we take, because Black is going to take the pawn on c5, and then White loses the advantage. The second most natural move is the correct one, taking the pawn with our pawn and also attacking that rook at the same time. Black here has no good available square for the rook. Can't move it along the 7th rank because it'll be captured. The only viable option is way down here to a1, but White's going to continue to push that pawn. And even if the rook checks on b2, Black can't capture our pawn because their own king is blocking the way. So if the rook moves, that pawn is unstoppable. So what is this puzzle? Seems pretty easy so far, right? But don't think that pawn push is all it takes to win this game. No. Think again, because Black right here might have a brilliant defense. The Black rook has no good square for now, but after bishop to e6 places us in check, a new wave of possibilities open up. See, if we move to b2, Black will check the king with rook to a2, and our king is forced to move. Now Black will have time to stop our promotion. King to b1, Black rook to h2, followed by rook to h8 the next move. c3 is even worse because after the check, Black will pick up the bishop and is also going to have time to stop our pawn promotion. So has Black managed to save the game for itself here? Definitely not. Because as good as the Black move was, we can play an even better move by capturing their bishop with our rook. Now, if they accept this rook trade, White has a tempo up, and Black, once again, cannot stop that pawn. So you'd think White manages to win the game with that rook sacrifice, but think again. Black, seeing that White turned the table with a rook sack, decides to do the same. Rook to b7. Pretty good move. Now, we can't take their rook because our own rook is hanging. And after that pawn takes, the bishop is blocking our b6 pawn from advancing, and that's a waste of a move to clear the way. All Black needs is one move to catch that pawn. As White, we've got to find a way to check with the rook, capturing the Black rook while also saving our own. Now the only available check in this position right here is moving our rook to e5. Now if Black goes here, White takes the rook and will win the game. Moving the king also doesn't work. So what other way can Black stop this check and avoid the loss? You guessed it, they move their pawn right here to d5. Now again, White must be careful here to avoid our first initial thought. Now I say that because If they take the pawn with the rook, like so, black can take the pawn, and the white bishop cannot capture the rook because it's blocked. So you might think, hey, we can give another check to unblock the bishop. Well, that doesn't work anymore because the only available check, as I'm sure you can see, is rook to d6. Now after the black king moves to c7, this will be a discovery check from black's perspective. White's got to deal with it and capture the rook, and then black is going to capture as well. So instead of the rook capturing, we got to take it with the bishop. Now while it looks like the black rook can easily take our pawn now, that'd be a blunder and checkmate in one. So can you see the winning move here? Yep, you guessed it. That's bishop to b7. I hope you enjoyed and learned something from this example. I think this one is really worth analyzing because it's a great example of how, as playing white, you could lose your advantage drastically at any given moment. Now, as usual, if you'd like us to cover a certain challenge, a certain puzzle, a certain topic, please do not hesitate to comment below and we'll get to it. Also, a thumbs up and hitting that subscribe button will greatly help. Thanks again for watching.